Hi, folks. Thanks for watching my monologue. As America starts to reopen, just remember that guns, etc., never closed. They still have over 10,200 square feet of ammo, firearms, and accessories, including safes, and they remain open for business. Stop by their huge store in Mesa or just click on gunsetcetera.com. And if you like my monologues, please subscribe to 960 The Patriots YouTube channel. Thanks.
Welcome back and happy June 11th. If I may, from George Orwell's 1984. Every record has been destroyed or falsified. Every book has been rewritten. Every picture has been repainted. Every statue and street and building has been renamed. Every date has been altered. And that process is continuing day by day and minute by minute. History has stopped. Nothing exists except an endless present in which the party is always right. From Milan Kundera's Book of Laughter and Forgetting. The first step in liquidating a people is to erase its memory, destroy its books, its culture, its history, then have somebody write new books, manufacture a new culture, invent a new history. Before long, the nation will begin to forget what it is and what it was. The world around it will forget even faster. From the opening of the HBO series Chernobyl. What is the cost of lies? It's not that we'll mistake them for the truth. The real danger is that if we hear enough lies, then we no longer will recognize the truth at all. What can we do then? What else is left but to abandon even the hope of truth and content ourselves instead with stories? In these stories, it doesn't matter who the heroes are. All we want to know is who is to blame. From historian Wilfred McClay. For the human animal, meaning is not a luxury. It's a necessity. Without it, we perish. Historical consciousness is to civilized society what memory is to individual identity. Without memory and without the stories by which our memories are carried forward, we cannot say who or what we are. Without them, our life and thought dissolve into a meaningless, unrelated rush of events. Just wanted to share those as templates of where I think we are on a number of fronts today. Plus another thought, because note how thoughts have become crimes, just as speech has become violence. I'm going to repeat that, because I never thought it would happen here, but it has. Thoughts have become crimes, just as speech has become violence. You've heard me say, and I think it's worth reiterating, the reason we care so much about what's going on at our campuses is because they shape. Say what you want, but they also teach. They can teach rightly and right things, and they can teach wrongly and wrong things. And we believe what's taught at our campuses matters. The idea used to be you go to school to train in your life, your profession, your families, your civic engagements, and yes, of course, to build and arrange the intellectual furniture of your mind, to use Alan Bloom's great phrase. Well, why do we wake up surprised to find millions and millions of students went through these schools, these teachings, these systems, and now take what they were taught and bring it to bear in adult, postgraduate, civil, civic, and their work life? Teaching sticks and trains for good and for ill. So does behavioral instruction. You've heard me speak of what 2 generations of soaking our children in intellectual Purell and surrounding them in bubble wrap has caused in now the rest of America. First, words hurt, then ideas, then election outcomes. All required safe spaces, isolation, and protection from words, ideas, and then a protest against election outcomes. And when the first whiff of upset or fear comes, we, too many, retreat to safe spaces or create safe spaces by declaring words, violence, and ideas crimes. Thus, censorship. That's how you create a safe space. Or they go to war. Call it a civil war if you like. My objection to using the phrase civil war is a lot of it isn't civil. What was the first shot in that war? Declaring our leadership illegitimate or an existential threat or fascist. It's a civil war only, I suppose, because it's waged against our fellow Americans. But how else do you describe the most prominent Southern Congressman, James Clyburn, saying Donald Trump reminds him of Germany in the 1930s? How else do you describe Michigan Congressman Rashida Tlaib retweeting a statement that said F, our National Day of Prayer? This is how a culture disappears when it sanctions, or rather countenances, that kind of talk. Then, of course, you do other things. You ban books, you ban ideologies, you deface and remove statues. Even statues in a fight claiming civil rights, statues of emancipators and abolitionists, because you don't know who they are. You don't know why their statues are there. You just know two things. A, they are Americans, and B, someone else put them there. And those someone else's had to be racists because of A, they were Americans. And America is racist. It's not just in our DNA, it's who we are and who we have been, or so we are told. Just today, Mayor Bill de Blasio of New York said, quote, "The coronavirus discriminates because America discriminates," close quote. As if the coronavirus is an American invention. Point one. Point two, does China not discriminate where the virus was invented? Point three, America does not discriminate. Here's what happened on our campuses. Truth, real truth, was dispensed with and doubted, and it was replaced with ideological certainty. Alan Bloom put it this way in his opening to the closing of The American Mind, quote, "There is one thing a professor can be absolutely certain of. Almost every student entering the university believes or says he believes that truth is relative. If this belief is put to the test, one can count on the student's reaction. They will be uncomprehending. That anyone should regard the proposition as not self-evident astonishes them, as though he were calling into question 2 + 2 = 4. These are things you don't think about. The students' backgrounds are as various as America can provide. Some are religious, some atheists, some are to the left, some to the right, some intend to be scientists, some humanists or professionals or businessmen, some are poor, some are rich. They are unified only in their relativism. May I pause a moment to recall that the tyranny in 1984 by Orwell was to get people to actually say and think that 2 + 2 = 5. Back to Bloom. The students, of course, cannot defend their opinion. It is something with which they have been indoctrinated. But this has shifted and turned since Alan Bloom wrote that. Yes, truth is still relative, but right thinking politically is not relative. It comes with a hardened certainty, not to mention demagoguery. So conservative thought, as it is now called, is dangerous or extreme. It can even be fascist. And so it must be banned or marginalized. That is the truth students and now too many adults subscribe to. The discovery of all liberal thought, though, all progressive thought, the thoughts most of us, you and I, disagree with, but have indeed captured so many millennials, that thought, that ideology has come about by one ironic thing the progressives now disdain: free thought and inquiry, ethics and rules of reason that stem from academic freedom and the First Amendment, intellectual diversity, ethics and rules of reason that came from, wait for it, the West and Western philosophy. Now, having taken advantage of those ethics, they choose to roll them up and put them away and deny them to anyone else. They've seized them and taken them over. Philosophers used to worry about these things, the problems of open societies and how their weaknesses and strengths, depending on your point of view, could be taken advantage of and used against. But it was only Western culture and philosophy and, frankly, American jurisprudence that supported philosophical and liberal inquiry. Why? Start with Plato, if you like. Go to Jefferson, if you like. I think the notion is captured well by one of the great jurists of the last century, Learned Hand, who said in the midst of World War II, "The spirit of liberty is the spirit which is not too sure that it is right. The spirit of liberty is the spirit which seeks to understand the mind of other men and women. The spirit of liberty is the spirit which weighs their interests alongside its own without bias. The spirit of liberty remembers that not even a sparrow falls to earth unheeded. The spirit of liberty is the spirit of him who, near 2,000 years ago, taught mankind that lesson it is never learned but never quite forgotten, that there may be a kingdom where the least shall be heard and considered side by side with the strongest." And now in that spirit of an America which has never been and which may never be, nay, which never will be except as the conscience and courage of Americans creating it, yet in the spirit of that America which lies hidden in some form in the aspirations of us all, in the spirit of that America for which our young men are at this moment fighting and dying, in that spirit of liberty and of America, I ask you to rise and with me pledge our faith in the glorious destiny of our beloved country. That's what he said in the midst of World War II. That's how liberals used to think, because they got it. They got what Jefferson got, that we are all legitimate in holding diverse opinions. That's over. We are not legitimate because, get this, we actually like the words of the Constitution and are trying to put them back into our judicial opinions and reasonings. The New York Times calls such efforts extreme, meaning the thought of James Madison must be extreme. The thought of Earl Warren and William Brennan and Ruth Bader Ginsburg, this is what the law of America must be. Any deviation from that, any dissent from that, extreme. This is part and parcel of the view that just, no other way to put it, hates America first. Why else condemnation of Donald Trump for being responsible for the spread of the coronavirus here, or racism, but condemnation of us when we point out the origins and maladministrations and lies that actually was and were the vector of this pandemic? Tyrannical China, for example. Note well, just fine to call the president an anti-Semite or worse, but there's never a condemnation of real tyrants. There's always more on how it was criminal to kill Qasem Soleimani, for example, but nary a peep about the crimes against humanity Soleimani perpetrated. Trump wants to close the border. He's a racist and a xenophobe. Canada does it. Honduras does it. Others do it. To silence. The government of China recently banned all reporters from major American newspapers. Put it into Google. This phrase, Trump war on media or Trump war on press. You'll get hundreds of millions of hits, I kid you not. How many times do you expect CNN or other outlets to condemn China for actually banning the American press and calling that a war on the media or press? This is how minds are trained. Enough times you say Trump is evil, and in the absence of calling out true evil, then of course soon you've created the mindset that we are worse than China, or at least deserving of more condemnation. So resist this and turn it around. Do what the schools have stopped doing. Teach America. Teach the West. Where to start? I like the advice of David McCullough. He said, start with the Midnight Ride of Paul Revere. Go to Stephen Vincent Benet's John Brown's Body, Frederick Douglass's autobiography, Ben Franklin's autobiography, the speeches of Chief Joseph Lincoln's second inaugural address, Grant's memoirs, selections from Shelby Foote and Barbara Tuchman, the wonderful prose of Francis Parkman, the Oregon Trail. The list could be indefinite. Go to Martin Luther King's Letter from a Birmingham Jail, on and on. These are all not only major events in the history of our country, they are great literature. They have survived the test of time, just as literature of conventional kinds has. And this could be exciting. This could bring young people and their teachers into a love of history, which is essential. For if we raise generation after generation of young Americans who are historically illiterate, we're running a terrible risk for this country. You could have amnesia of a society, which is as detrimental as amnesia for an individual. But of course, that truly is the plan. Resist it. I'm Seth Leibson. Be right back.